Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DiscoTrek. I'm Alexandra August.
I'm Johnny Kolosinski.
And welcome to our Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Yeah, you can find this podcast on Twitter at the DiscoTrek and on Facebook.com/the DiscoTrek.
And you can find me on Twitter at ALXAugust.
And I am at Cycloptico.
Should you care to, join us.
CYCLOPTIKO. Had to think of how to spell my own dang handle.
I have to think about how to spell it every day. Or at least every time we record.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I usually let you do it. So, we're here to discuss Season 1, Episode 7.
Magic to make the sanest man go mad.
Another spectacular title.
Yeah.
Are you liking these kind of more poetic, more indulgent titles? Have they gotten on your nerves yet, or do you feel like they're appropriate?
They have not gotten on my nerves, with the exception that I'm kind of annoyed that we don't get the title card.
Huh, that's a good point. I
feel like that, it's because we're watching it in an entirely different way now. And so largely everyone sees the title as they're flipping through and tossing it on. But I thought that the little title card was a neat moment in the show.
Well, yeah, it's also a Trek trademark. I don't think there's been a series that hasn't had the title up at the top left corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if that just stylistically was done, because if you look at most like serialized dramas these days, even stuff that we would typically catch on something like AMC, I don't recall Breaking Bad ever doing that. I don't think Mad Men did it. Game of Thrones doesn't do it. But you are, I agree with you, you're right. But those things aren't just streamed, and they're widely imbibed on network television, or on television.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that I wonder if it is just a streaming thing. I'm wondering if, House of Cards does that too, because I know Stranger Things has title cards as well.
Stranger Things has title cards, but it's also a show that is designed to be nostalgic in style. Mm-hmm, the other reason that I thought that they might not do it is that kind of limits you as to how you're opening the episode. And since we aren't opening every week with a captain's log.
Yeah, since this really isn't episodic or almost a procedural, they could, Star Trek would occasionally stumble into. Huh. Well, interesting. Briefly, this was a really exciting episode to watch because it was the first time loop episode we got of this particular Star Trek, and time loops are a bit of a hallmark. I think Johnny and I probably discussed 3 or 4 single episode time loop type episodes.
There's a lot of messing with time episodes, but there's only one true time loop like this until now, where we're repeating the same moment over and over and over.
Interesting. Okay, because I guess I would consider what's the one with Tasha Yar, where she comes, Yesterday's Enterprise.
Enterprise?
Almost consider that a time loop, but I think it's more of a time blip.
Yeah, it's a time blip because we don't go back to the beginning of it after. We go back to where we came from, but we only do the one round.
Yeah, and there is a change that sneaks through. Which is interesting, which is kind of sort of the worst case scenario of this episode. So Harry Mudd manages to sneak aboard, and by the time we are aware of him, by the time the crew becomes aware of them, he's already snuck aboard 50 or so times and managed to blow up the ship each time in an effort to learn how to use the spore drive so he can jump into Klingon space and sell the Discovery to the Klingons, which is kind of a genius plan, to be honest. Oh, yeah. If you have the equipment to pull it off, I gained a lot of respect for Mudd this episode. Stamets, because he's now part 4-dimensional being, is the only person who is immune to all of these to the time loop happening, so he remembers what happened.
Because he's high.
Yeah. He is extremely positive. I guess that is just one way to describe him now. But yeah, so he's kind of occupying a different point in space-time. Or he's kind of occupying more of space-time, I guess, than everybody else is. So he's aware of what's going on, but it takes him essentially 40 to 50 time loops to figure out a way to convince people in less than 30 minutes what is going on in time for them to help. So a lot of the episode is just Stamets trying to convince Burnham over and over again of what's happening, and then trying to convince her that she can use the romance brewing between her and Ash Tyler to convince Tyler to believe her, so Tyler will help them defeat Mud, because he knows Mud because he shared a cell with him 2 episodes ago in Choose Your Pain. And eventually this all manages to come to pass, and they double-cross Mud, who thinks he's getting the jump on Lorca and the crew, but winds up getting himself back in the arms of his beloved Stella and her warmongering father. In a very, very, very classic TOS ending. And we actually got to see the young version of Stella. We see the older version of her in I, Mud, and she's awful. And we got to see the young version of her, and you can kind of see she's very demanding, but she's also naive and very in love with Mud, and you can see why she becomes this sort of like shrewish harridan by the time of I, Mud rolls around, because he is just not interested in her at all, and you can see the beginning of her disappointment kind of in this episode, and it was sort of like hilariously, tragically sweet, I guess. But
yeah, I liked her a lot because the way she was played felt very much like the wilting 60s ingenue.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an excellent throwback to the period of the original series.
Mm-hmm. And also, because a lot of the female costumes on the original series were, directly inspired by the 60s. There's not a lot of... They didn't really dress from the future. They dressed from, like, the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Yeah.
It's like they're really not a huge leap, probably because they didn't have the budget for original costume design. I mean, no Trek shows really had a ton of budget for that. So the vision that you see of Stella Mud, I guess, in I, Mud, she's like probably in her, I would say late 40s, which makes sense with the timing of all of this. And she's wearing a very traditional sort of like late 40, like woman in her late 40s, 60s evening gown, where it's like kind of got an empire waist and a really loud pattern, and her hair's up in a big like bouffant, and walks out of a transporter room yelling, "Hardcore Fenton Mud!" And I'm sorry, you guys have probably either have seen I, Mud or watched it when we told you to, or looked that up, or don't need to see me perform Stella Mud, but she reminds me a lot of Joanne Worley. From Laugh-In.
Okay, yep, that is beyond my cultural knowledge.
Okay, she played the original dresser in Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I loved the whole arc of this episode because it felt very... despite the fact that Mud's obviously a throwback character, and the party that we saw was very much this new series, the pacing of the episode and the way it wrapped itself up was episodic.
It was. But yeah, so how did you like, okay, so I agree with you. I thought this was the pace of this episode was really clean, and it had intention.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brisk. At the same time, I thought that served the Mud storyline extremely well. I thought it really underserved the romance between Burnham and Tyler and kind of made it silly, which bothered me because it was like, we get so little romance on Star Trek, and I was like, oh good, this is a Star Trek that would treat that with respect and make it interesting, and this just seemed a little bit cheap. It seemed a little pushed forward to me, even though it's a very romantic idea to have, your first date and your first kiss, your first dance all happen in a time loop and you don't remember it, and only like one weird gay engineer does.
I think that it was a way to push both characters out of their comfort zone, in a way that would have taken a lot more time and writing space otherwise. And I think we'll still get to see the real burgeoning romance between Michael Burnham and actual human Ash Tyler.
I hope so. But
I don't think that's going to be a slower move.
Well,
from here on out.
Like I said, I would hope so. You say comfort zones, though. I feel like he wasn't put out of his comfort zone, and I think that's what kind of bothered me. It was just sort of, I didn't feel like, he was just sort of like Good Time Charlie this entire episode. Like, hey, you don't want to talk? We don't have to talk. You want to dance? Mm-hmm. Oops, too fast. Like, he was way too comfortable and kind of glib, and she was...
exactly how you'd expect.
Yeah, and I guess it was just, something just didn't quite land for me, because I think I like the Tyler that I saw in Choose Your Pain on Laurel's ship, who ran at her and was absolutely angry and despairing and full of hate and vulnerable. And granted, obviously, I can't expect him to be that when he's on duty, and it might mean something that he's bounced back so quickly, as we've discussed before. But yeah, something about this just didn't sit right with me. Though I really did love the fact that they showed a party, like a Lower Decks party, when they were dancing around to like a 300-year-old version of Staying Alive. And we got to see some Al Green played. It was
the Al Green was a perfect moment.
Yeah. Actually, it's actually, and I'm curious to know. So I think everybody, we're gonna speculate a little bit right here. So if you want to remain truly clear of spoilers, give us like 5 minutes and come back. If Ash Tyler is in fact Voke, or some weird Voke human clone merging creature, it makes this romance so much more messed up and so much weirder. And I kind of hope that's the way they're going with it.
I would be very surprised if if that's not the way they're going with it.
Me too. The Javid Iqbal thing is a pretty damning evidence. I'm just like, it's hilarious, but it's also damning. If you're not, by the way, following
real Javid Iqbal on Twitter, go do that right now.
And if you haven't listened to our other episodes talking about this, Javid Iqbal is the actor who supposedly played Vok. Is he just listed for the first 2 episodes?
No,
or is he listed for all of them? Yeah, he's supposedly the actor who's playing Voke, but he has absolutely no pictures of himself not in Klingon makeup, and he is has virtually no other credits on IMDb, and no bio and no nothing. Which is pretty strange for an actor on a network show as big as this. Just put it out there. Johnny was kind enough to detail this for me, because I remained blissfully unaware of it till about 2 weeks ago.
But I got to spoil her illusions.
But I don't know that they were just illusions so much as curtains of ignorance and unawareness. But thank you for pulling them back.
Yeah, I don't think, like, honestly, from what we've seen so far, this isn't the Star Trek where we get to see the happy romance and one of them isn't a Klingon.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That being said, this episode as a whole is probably, if I'm telling someone to watch one episode of Discovery, at least until we see what's happening after the mid-season break, this is probably going to be the episode I tell them to watch.
Yeah, I think this is a great episode, ironically, to get in new viewers. To get in people who are not Star Trek fans, watch this episode, because it's so very Star Trek, and it has this kind of sort of human interest story that isn't too sentimental, is kind of interesting and light in its own way, and we have these sweet moments, like between Stamets and Burnham dancing in the hallway, because he's just totally daffy at this point, and they have that lovely conversation, a lovely meeting of the minds, done in such an artistic way, really, and Star Trek usually isn't so indulgent when it comes to romance. And when I say romance, I use that more in the literary term of just being a little less cerebral and a little more artistic. That's not usually where Star Trek leans. And so to get a moment like that this week was kind of beautiful, at least to me. I thought that was lovely.
And from a more traditional definition of romance, I would say that the only romance we've seen done well on the show so far has ironically been Dax and Worf.
Yeah, and they were see, Star Trek, if you guys are new to Star Trek, or you've always been a casual fan, Star Trek has really, really, really shied away from romance between its lead characters because it's not an episodic show, or because it's not a serialized show. It never really has been. So to wit, it took them 3 shows and into 5 seasons of that show to get 2 major characters together. Those 2 major characters managed to
long term.
Yeah, for long term, they get married, and then one of them dies. So it's not. Sorry, spoiler alert. It's not.
We won't tell you who.
We won't tell you who. It's not the person who appears in later movies. That person stays alive.
It's the person whose contract was up for negotiation.
Yeah, so Star Trek is just never, and it was like pulling teeth to get them to do that. It took them 7 seasons to get Kira and Odo together.
Yeah. After hinting at it, after having the first "I love you" in season 3.
Yeah, after finding out how Odo felt about her, which just made things really awkward.
Because then
it was. I liked Kira and Odo when they were together, but they were together for such a short. But
friend zone Odo was. Yeah.
Especially because you knew the age difference between Rene Auberjonois and Nana Visitor, and to me that was just there was a level of squick there just because they made him kind of this like lurking stalker that was just kind of like inked me up, but no, nothing personal. It was just the idea of that and the way they characterized Odo didn't make for like a nice experience pie in my head. And then on Voyager, they kind of move away from that again, and the only long-term relationship that show saw really was Tom and B'Elanna.
Right.
And they took their time doing
again,
that.
A Klingon.
What is it about Klingons? I don't know. So, long story short, Star Trek is not fond of romance, and they are really diving into it here, which I think, Johnny, goes to your point of the fact that, like, this probably is not going to end well.
Yeah.
If other romance is is any indication.
Yeah. Not gonna end well.
Yeah. Can we talk about the timey-wimey loopy-doopiness? Because and the person in charge of that, because oh my god, does Rainn Wilson like kind of deserve an Emmy as far as I'm concerned. This was so fun. I loved the status change between him in the cell and then him being this kind of bumbling con artist and him getting the jump on these guys in a really real amazing way. Yeah.
Apparently this isn't the first time he did this since the conversation that happened between him and Ash that we didn't see, but that Ash talks about, was that he used this same method he basically told Ash that he used this same method to rob a bank. Because he has a Betazoid bank, yes. Because he he credited his amazing memory and being able to memorize everyone's movements. And then we saw exactly how he did that, which was just watch the movements over and over and over.
Which I thought was interesting. I find it interesting that of all the species for you to model like a Gringotts type bank after, the Betazoids.
Yeah.
I was surprised that was the choice, and it got me thinking of why the Betazoids would have, like, if they just tossed in that name to like give a Betazoid shout out, or to establish that Betazoids exist in this time period, because obviously they didn't in the original, obviously they weren't referenced in the original series. But I was like, wait, so it got me thinking, I'm like, maybe there's just like a lot of psi crime on Betazed.
Well, we kind of know that.
Like, are you talking about Lon Suitor? Because he doesn't count.
Oh, that and one other telepath every season.
Not Betazoids. Telepaths.
Not Betazoids.
Not Betazoids.
Not actually Betazoids, but given the fact that we don't see 2 seasons of Troy in therapy after all of these encounters.
This is true. Only in Nemesis.
Only in Nemesis.
And only... Sorry. Only mid-coitus.
For those of you who are wondering what we're referencing, Nemesis is a movie that I hope never comes up again on this podcast.
Oh, God, everyone hates Nemesis. It's not that bad.
It's better than Insurrection.
Oh, my God. And Insurrection is also not bad. Okay, this is another...
It's better than Generations.
You guys can... You can go sit with Mark Altman, and you guys can have a chat. Because y'all are just... y'all only like one Star Trek The Next Generation movie, and I think that's unfair. And... we know it's the best, but it's not the... It's just... Okay, we can move on.
Better than Star Trek 5?
Everything's better than Star Trek 5.
There we go. We agree on something.
We agree on that. So, I mean, Rainn Wilson has talked about how he was going to make Mudd a little bit dark, how Mudd was going to be darker, but what I like is that Mudd is more capable.
Mm-hmm.
Mudd was always, despite the fact that, like, you know, for all his bumbling nature, the original series Mudd, the fact that he always had this kind of bumbling nature about him really belied the fact that he did manage to get away with some pretty intense schemes. But but you just don't really give him credit.
And that he was basically a sex trafficker. Yeah,
and we don't really give him. You don't really give him the appropriate credit for that because he has this kind of bumbling comedic presentation.
And he's followed around by
characterization,
basically a soundtrack on a xylophone.
Absolutely, yeah. And he wears a sash, and he's got an earring and a handlebar mustache, and it's like he's a goop. Like, he's great, but he's sort of, you know, he's comic relief. And
yeah,
this Mudd is comic relief, but in a far more realistic way, in a far more grounded way, which I thought was kind of interesting because, like, even like the party itself was comic relief for a lot of these characters. It was a lot of leisure for a lot of these characters, but in a realistic way that was grounded, because I think knowing that Star Trek's been a military show, it's always kind of stuck in my brain. I'm like, why don't we see this kind of stuff?
Yeah, why do we see for he's a jolly good fellow?
Yeah, why is everyone on their best behavior? Why doesn't anybody swear?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, like, Stamets runs around this week with his uniform half undone because he's freaked out, and we almost never see that. Only the engineers roll up their sleeves, and it's only the chief engineer ever.
Mm-hmm. And if we see somebody running around out of uniform, it's because, you know, they're time traveling.
Yeah,
I guess that fits.
It does fit. Well, he's not time traveling; he's just aware of it.
Well, yeah, I was thinking All Good Things.
Ooh.
And which is, I can't believe it's not something I thought about as a Messing with Time episode.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I feel like All Good Things is in a league of its own.
It is.
I don't know. I feel like if we told somebody to watch All Good Things in preparation for one of these episodes, I would feel bad and want to apologize to All Good Things.
Yeah. But I think that, so Mudd is darker, but Mudd is still fun because Mudd is having fun.
Yes.
At the same time, Mudd doesn't come across as, like, chewing on his own underwear crazy.
No.
he's just...
He's a con man. And
he's a con man. He's vindictive.
Mm-hmm.
He is enjoying the fact that he is able to make someone who made him suffer more, and then do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, Mudd is not a nice guy. Mudd doesn't have a good heart. Mudd is a selfish, vindictive guy who is out to make as much money as he can at whomever's expense he can. It might be that he was just, like, hit a lot as a child or something, or, you know, nobody was nice to him. But Mudd isn't a nice guy at his heart. He doesn't have a heart of gold. He's not the worst guy in the world, though. At the end of the day, like, he's not a psycho. He's not a sociopath. He just
kind of gross.
Yeah, he's just kind of a shithead.
Yeah, and compare him to Quark, who has the same greed,
mm-hmm.
And is driven by the same avarice, but also he has a family. But he also has compassion that he tries to work against,
mm-hmm.
but exists.
And even though it would probably hamper the character development of Mudd, I kind of hope we never see that side of him. I like this Mudd.
Yeah.
I don't need to see his soft side. Like, I'm fine with this character existing in the Star Trek universe. It does not conflict with any of his later behavior in the original series. I like it. And I don't need him humanized. There's enough moral ambiguity.
We don't need him to come back in the 6th season and save Discovery from the Borg.
No, there's enough moral ambiguity in the Discovery's captain's chair. I don't need
We've got enough people struggling with their bad side. We don't need to see somebody struggling with his good side.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not necessary. He's just he's funny on his own. And just the absolute, like I mentioned, the status change, it was fun to see Lorca kind of bumbling and not knowing what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
Which should also bring home to all of you just how serious a time loop is. When Lorca doesn't know what's going on. When Mud was just sitting in his chair eating a sandwich. Like, and didn't look to be a very good one. Like a ham sandwich on a hamburger bun. I remember looking at that being like, that does not look like a good sandwich.
See, I love sandwiches on buns.
Oh, my mom loves those
That's the future
too.
I want.
Oh, man. No, yeah, you and my mom can take your Kaiser rolls and go off into the sunset. I am not a fan. Give me a nice toasted sourdough.
But if there is one thing that we hope you take away from this episode, other than my choice of sandwich, it's that if you get caught in a time loop, take notes.
Uh-huh. Okay. So
know what you're doing.
This is a question I have. Or once you are aware of your time in the time loop, go Memento and start. Well, no, the tattoos won't help.
Tattoos won't help. You gotta get really good.
Okay, so this was my question. So we know why Stamets can remember, and we know why Mud can remember what happened. It seemed like eventually Burnham started remembering what happened, and that to me was the point where the episode, like, I don't think that you get better at these with practice. I don't think
that Burnham was remembering what happened.
Okay.
I think it's that Stamets got better at bringing her in earlier and more efficiently.
That was what I think. That was what I thought.
But we stopped seeing it after the dance.
Yeah, and it just that was slightly problematic to me. I might get better on rewatch though. I think that just contributed to me thinking like, boy, this episode is moving like a bat out of hell, which kind of worked for the sense of urgency that Stamets was trying to project to everyone. Like everyone, like all of a sudden, like the audience is like, you started feeling it too. You're like, okay, all right, what's going on next? Which also contributed to sort of the levity of this episode too. Like this was funny.
Yeah.
When he,
I think that in the last loop we could have gotten the bullet point explanation from Stamets of Stamets has suddenly figured out how to do this in 35 seconds. Get them on board.
Yeah. Yeah. It really, like all of a sudden we're getting like Stamets' impersonation of Jeffrey Rush and Shine or something like that.
Yeah. You've never been in love. Also, your social security number is blank. And when you were 11, you painted one nail black and Sarek never noticed.
Yeah, that would have been that, even, or if we had seen that like 3 or 4 times, I don't know. That might have been a little too sitcom-y, what I just said. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that would have been fun. I did think it was also really fun when she eats all the like the black molecular like things that I can't remember what those things are called, but they were neat, and he was playing with them way too he was treating them like jelly beans.
Well, he didn't care.
I know he didn't care. Oh, yeah, that's true.
As long as he makes it to the 30 minutes, or doesn't make it to the 30 minutes, he's fine.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I thought that was pretty... I liked how cleanly... This was like a really cleanly played game of speed chess.
All right, spoilers for The Prestige. So step away, folks. Mm-hmm. He was killing himself every time and remembering it.
Oh, yeah, Mud is... Oh, I like him. I like him a lot. Don't want to meet him in a dark alley. I like him a lot.
Prestige, Hugh Laurie. Hugh Laurie wasn't killing anyone. Hugh Jackman was killing himself, but he wasn't remembering his own death.
That just gives me more chills at Mud. Now, okay, so I do want to see Mud again, but I want to see his goals aligned with the Discovery, so they have to work together. I would see him again in that capacity. And I would see, like, because I would like to see this crew get a little muddy, and I would like to see him
muddy.
Yeah, pun very much intended. I would like to see him. I just want to see more Mud. I want to see him interact with people in a way that is not so directly antagonistic, because because that can only get so fun. So
right.
I will say, if you did enjoy this episode, do yourself a favor and watch After Trek, because Rainn Wilson Skypes in from LA, and he goes over all of the insults that he would levy at Saru and different members of the bridge crew, because he would improvise them every time. So, like, he got apparently, like, with Saru, he would just be like, oh, legs, Yao Ming, stretch, all this kind of, like, things that could never, ever be used. So if you want to see something that gets a little bit uncomfortable and something you would never see on CBS All Access, tune into After Trek and fast forward to the part where Rainn Wilson is going over his nicknames. I loved that he called Lorca Old Man.
Yeah.
It tingled my Cisco heart.
I had another mud thought.
Ooh, random comms man. Random comms person.
Random comms, yeah, random communications guy.
Yes. It was that was very Orville to me. And I've not seen a ton of the Orville, but it was very Trek tongue-in-cheek in a very funny way, which I feel like Orville is trying to... That's the Orville.
Yeah. If the uniforms had been slightly different, he would have called him Red Shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. It was self-referential in a really dark way, which I enjoy. Which,
yeah,
I think is a fun way to do it. Rainn Wilson is just tearing this up.
If we see Mudd back this season, though, I'll be a little concerned that we'll have gone to that well too much too quick.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't need to see him back until season 2.
Yeah, or even season 3. Like, if we're going to have more of those moments, I think... I'm torn now as to whether I'd rather see more prequel, more obvious on-the-nose prequel characters, maybe... God forbid we see Sybok.
Or Trelane. If they figure out a way to make Sybok actually narratively palatable, I'll campaign for this show to get an Emmy myself. I'll make them an Emmy. Like, I'll figure out a way to do it, and I will make them an Emmy with my own 2 hands. We can summon him. Before we close out, I really have a question about Stamets. And something that we talked about before we started recording. So Stamets' newfound mood, which everybody's taken everybody some time to get used to, is basically permanent, according to what Anthony Rappis said on the last After Trek, which I think you told me. And then because it's a product of the fact that his DNA has permanently been fused with this creature's, and he's a different species now, probably forever. And we've seen indications that could be somewhat sinister, given his sort of like mirror smile after his reflection remaining after he's walked away in the mirror. That's very sinister. But this week he's a ball of positivity. Yeah, and it manifests in a really real, organic, beneficial way that doesn't feel like he's high. It feels like he is really on a different plane of perspective. It feels like he's really changed. And what Anthony Rapp said on After Trek was that what he thought the reasoning behind that was, or the way he was sort of taking the character, was that Stamets has been able to finally experience firsthand the science that he's been studying and the science that has fascinated him for his entire life. And now he's effectively a part of it, and he's touching it, and he is that, and he gets to see the beauty of this thing that he's been chasing for so long. And that's just made him incredibly grateful and incredibly happy. And I'm wondering if that's a red herring, if this is going to turn sinister at some point, or if it's going to turn tragic. So it'll be both Stamets getting this kind of like, one of those classic Grey's Anatomy plot lines of like somebody comes in and they're eternally happy, but it turns out they've got
to become a Grey's Anatomy podcast.
Well, because I've been watching
every week.
I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy lately. But so yeah, they come in and they've got a brain tumor like pressing on their frontal lobe, which is making them happy. Like, do you think it's going to be one of those kinds of things and this will end up tragically? Or do you think that, what Rapp said is a total red herring, and there's something sinister going on beneath the surface of Stamets?
I don't think there's something going on sinister beneath the surface of Stamets. I do think that when he talked about the fact that he's touched something he's been researching his entire life, and he's expanding his mind, so he's getting to experience that is mushrooms. So I do think that
I'm giving you like 2 more episoes on the high on shrooms jokes.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to.
I'm gonna keep going with them for the next 40. But no, I really think that it's not just scientific euphoria. I think that it is like it is the equivalent of it. It is the actual metaphysical experience that people talk about having when they're on mushrooms. Has got him, feeling more. But I think that the sinister side of things is going to be more to the fact that he has unintentionally become a multiverse hub. Kind of like in the Peter David Q Squared.
Yeah. When
where
Trelane
accidentally breaks it. Well, not accidentally. Intentionally breaks everything.
Oh, so good.
That's going... If there's one TNG novel to read, it's Peter David's Q Squared.
Or, okay, but along the same lines, I really think there are 2, and the other one is Dark Mirror.
Yes, Dark Mirror is also super good.
It's like probably the best Mirror Universe story, and it's not on TV. I've seen every single bit of the Mirror Universe that's been in Star Trek, and the Dark Mirror, the Star Trek TNG novelization is like probably the best.
It's because Dark Mirror Dark Mirror doesn't have actors having fun with it.
Yeah, it's just TNG.
And so it's just dark.
Yeah. By the way, there's a comic series. I got one at Free Comic Book Day this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, there are Dark Mirror comics, and boy, does Picard have some biceps.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Mirror Universe Picard would be jacked by Patrick Stewart standards.
That is my one. Oh, yeah, which is super jacked.
Oh, Patrick Stewart could kick my ass.
Oh, yeah, today.
Yeah.
Okay, so like in Dark Mirror, my only problem with Dark Mirror is that your main I think it's first person omniscient it's Picard's point of view, and he's on the ship, and so he's experienced everything, which means we don't get to see Dark Mirror Picard, and everyone's freaking terrified of him because
it's not first person, because we do see the other Enterprise sometimes,
or third person omniscient.
Yeah, it's not we don't get to see the other Picard on the ship. Or right. on his D.
Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. It's just third person, because we get to see Deanna's perspective when she comes on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And which is also very good, because Deanna she has a psychic fight. She does like mind warrior stuff with the other Dark Deanna, and it's dope. It's really cool. I don't know.
All right, putting a feather in our cap to once we start finding out that it is going to be Mirror Universe time. That the episode to watch is going to be Read Dark Mirror.
Or we should just maybe that's our off-season content. Read Dark Mirror, which I would actually be super into. Because I haven't read that since junior high, and I bet it's still just as good.
Yeah.
But we should let's get back to talking about Q Squared, because I think that's very relevant.
Yeah. So Q Squared is we find out Trelane, the Squire of Gothos from the original series, is a young Q. And he is taken under John Delancey Q's wing as kind of as a mentorship. But he also touches the heart of the universe, or something along those lines. And
the heart of the storm?
The heart of the storm, yes, that's exactly what it was. Which is metaphysical bullshit.
Yeah. This book makes no real sense, but it's awesome.
No, but it's great.
It's really good.
FYI,
it's not canon. Trelane is not a Q in in Star Trek canon. I only say that because I feel like it's possible we'd see that Trelane character show up on Discovery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And sorry. Pardon my interruption. Did not mean to shut down your momentum.
Absolutely correct and important note. But he basically becomes more omnipotent than omnipotence.
Yeah.
And combines multiple, it decides, Q has a lot of likes these guys on this Enterprise, so I'm going to bring them together. So then I'm going to bring the Enterprise from the
two universes next door
from yesterday's Enterprise over, and we'll get them together, all on the same boat, and see how that goes. Oh, and also one where Jack Crusher is alive and is captain, or is he Picard's first officer?
He's captain.
I think he's Picard's first officer.
The structure of the book is that you essentially, before Trillian even comes on the stage, the book is told, and it's almost like Game of Thrones style point of view, but it's points of view from different alternate realities. So you get the Enterprise where Jack Crusher's captain, and he lived, and he has the career that Picard never had. He came up with the Crusher maneuver instead of Picard with the Picard maneuver, and then Picard and Beverly Crusher wind up, but he and Beverly Crusher get divorced, and so Picard comes on board, or Picard is his first officer, and Beverly comes on board, and Beverly and Picard start having an affair. So that's one storyline. And then there's the regular, like, canon Enterprise D storyline. And then there's the yesterday's Enterprise storyline, which is they're at war with the Klingons. And so you're following all these narratives going through the book. And then Trelane is active in kind of in our home base one. And he unites all of these at the end. So literally, like, Picard of Jack Crusher's ship is, like, running through the Enterprise, and then regular Picard comes across Beverly on Crusher's ship, and she dies. So at some point you're seeing him, like, cradle her, thinking that his Beverly it's just a mess, but it's great. Yeah. This was, I agree with you. There was very much a Q-squared feeling of all this, of just these people in this sort of funhouse. And it was the first time since, I feel like, the Vulcan Hello, where we've gotten that kind of, like, really wonky camera Dutch angle movement, lots more lens flares. This was an episode where I felt like that sort of dream state cinematography really fit. Yeah.
Yeah. How short is Sonequa Martin Green?
I don't know, and I would not trust IMDb for that information. I don't think she's that short.
So, not Javid Iqbal. I'm blanking on
Shazad Latif.
Shazad Latif is he
just incredibly tall?
So he's a tall dude as well.
He must be. He feels tall.
Yeah,
but that's so easy to mess with in film perspective, so I can't speak to that. But
right,
and I didn't see their panel or do their press conference at New York Comic Con, so I can't speak to that either, unfortunately.
Okay, just curious. Part of me thinks that half of the Dutch angles are a result of Saru. We need to get all of him and Sonequa Martin Green's head in frame.
Okay, so when he's on screen, do you hear him, like, I feel like I constantly hear his threat ganglia go up, but I don't know if it's just my brain playing tricks on me.
I will listen for that. I have not heard it.
Okay.
You mean specifically in this episode, or just in general?
Specifically in this episode, I feel like I heard them on screen quite a bit, go like I can't make the noise, but
I didn't hear it. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Okay. Well, I might have to think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to. Okay, so the Homer quote that this title is taken from made my, like, English major heart just go pitter patter. And it's there is the heat. I don't know what it's from. I don't think it's from the Iliad. I'm not sure what it's from, but it is Homer. There is the heat of love, the pulsing rush of longing, the lover's whisper, irresistible magic to make the sanest man go mad. Which, I don't know, just makes me want to do, like, rhythmic gymnastics or something. Like, just take a rivet and do lyrical dancing. I don't know. So, what did you think of that? Like, how do you think that really, do you think that quote applies to sort of both storylines in this episode? Do you think it's meant solely to be kind of pointed at the romance part? How do you, like, what do you think?
I think that the full quote only applies to the full episode, or I'm sorry, to Ash and Burnham. But it worked out very well between that and Mudd, and especially Stamets.
Oh, how so with Stamets? Just in the background with Wilson, in the background with Wilson Cruz's character with Culber?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Stamets is the maddest of them. I mean, overall.
He is a bit of a Mad Hatter, which is kind of fun, considering we've already
Mud is crazy, but Mud's not mad.
Oh, yeah.
Mud has not gone mad.
Well, I mean, he even says that in the episode.
Yeah.
That was that brilliant line.
It only worked because of the two... it was Stamets who called him mad, right?
No, it was Sonequa. It was
it was Burnham? Okay.
She goes, "You're mad." No, I'm Mud. It was a little bit indulgent, but I liked... I wasn't mad at it. I was like, all right, I'll let you guys get away with it.
Were you mad at it?
I was a little mad at it, but I don't know. I thought that just given Mud's sort of crazed avarice and his crazed vengeance mission, I thought that the longing part of that quote, the pulsing rush of longing, or just the fact that this is such flowery language, aligned itself with Mud to me, because that very much kind of what he cloaks himself in, and it's kind of the language the style that he cloaks himself in, when really he is he's
calculated.
He's calculated, and he's very pragmatic, and it's sort of, I love the fact that you can tell from the very beginning, you could smell, and it's not just because I've seen I, Mud and I know exactly how Mud actually feels about Stella. But you could tell from the beginning that Rainn Wilson had grounded his performance in the fact that his love for her and his sweet Stella was a total lie.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just smell that on him. And it's sort of, this feels like a poem that Mud would have sent to Stella on his way out of town with her dowry.
Right.
You know what I kind of an interesting double entendre there. Sort of.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
Oh man, I'm like in a Mud coma. This episode was a good time. I feel like you kind of talked me into the romance maybe being played out a little bit slower in the other two episodes, so now I don't care about it anymore. And I enjoyed Tilly like being like, I'm into dudes in bands, and Stamets being like, hey, that guy's in a band, and she just like walks away.
Yeah, obvious college junior.
Mm-hmm.
Tilly is fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The fact that she's like, I love the fact that she's like sweet and kind of shy, but she's in college, so she drinks.
Yep.
Go Tilly. Drink responsibly.
Tilly.
Tilly keeps a bottle of Captain Morgan that like she had on spring break.
Just the bottle?
Yeah, she likes it because it has a little parrot guy in the back.
Yeah.
She's one of those girls.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I don't know. She does only have the one friend. Maybe she
keeps a bottle of Captain Morgan that she drank at spring break, but not with anyone.
No, by the pool, just kind of like dancing around other groups to make it seem like she was with them. Oh,
and it was the best spring break she ever had.
I think on that note, is there anything else? Any other points you wanted to hit on this week?
No, that's really it. We didn't talk as much about cause and effect as I expected. So when we go back and do this episode again, I'll remember to do that.
I don't know. I feel like I think by covering this episode, we pretty effectively covered cause and effect, which is essentially this. It's a very much the same episode. So who is the person who figures out that they're in a time? Yeah, Data figures out they're in a time loop. He's got to keep refiguring it out until they break out of it. And then when they do, Kelsey Grammer is at the end of the rainbow.
It's true.
It's pretty, and it's like full mutton chop Kelsey Grammer too. It is a reward of Kelsey Grammer.
It is a Kelsey Grammer that we may end up seeing this season.
Oh,
not with an actor.
Damn.
But Kelsey Grammer that may have been around.
Yes, that. Oh yeah, that's right. Because he
was Enterprise C era, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. But anyway, that would have been nice. Maybe one day.
It's Kelsey Grammer that we won't see this season.
It was maximum Kelsey Grammer. Like he was sitting in a uniform that was very well fitted, mutton chops out the wazoo, very much like, hello, what am I doing here? Really, there's a time loop? Oh, Niles, pour me some port.
This is Kelsey Grammer, high on Frasier success before down Periscope. Yeah, this is peak Kelsey Grammer.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Check out Cause and Effect, especially if you like Must See TV. And next week, we will be back Tuesday morning with our discussion of episode 8, Si vis pacem, Parabellum, which is Latin for if you want peace, prepare for war.
Interesting, because when she read that out loud to me the first time, I heard possum like the animal. And given that it looks like a Saru-focused episode, I found that very fitting.
Your imagination goes in so many different directions when you're just listening to something and not reading it. I've made that mistake before.
Which is why we have a podcast.
That's why we have a podcast. Yeah, pretty ominous title for next week, which I'm sure we will get into after we watch it.
Yep. So thank you, folks. Don't forget, if you're listening to this on the Got Thrones podcast, to find us on iTunes at the DiscoTrek.
Yep, we will be continuing to publish episodes of the DiscoTrek until the remainder of the first half of the first season, and then we will be moving the feed permanently under the DiscoTrek and will not release under Got Thrones anymore. So you have about 2 more weeks to subscribe before we're going to give you very handy reminders, and we hope you stick with us. We're having a ton of fun doing this, and we know there's crossover demographics, so if you guys are Star Trek fans, we would love it if you came along with us to this new thing. We will not stop doing Got Thrones, obviously, but considering we've got like an 18-month break before there's new Thrones content, we're gonna do other stuff too.
Yep. And this is the podcast we were born to do.
Well, thank you as always, Johnny. I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye, guys. Thank you.